I have gotten a lawyer to get from Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube every account, every IP address that has been reporting my social media platforms. That information, as soon as I get it, will be turned over to Internal Affairs for the DOJ BOP investigation as intimidation, harassment, and other forms of trying to silence my First Amendment rights. Thank you for making me greater. Jennifer Bonjean's motion for production of investigative materials developed in connection with DOJ FBI investigation of a BOP officer who stole defendants' confidential prison records communications, including privileged attorney-client communications. Now comes Robert Kelly, defendant, by and through his counsel. Jennifer Bonjean respectfully moves this court for an order commanding the United States Attorney's Office to produce materials prepared in connection with the government's alleged investigation into Bureau prisons, officers who accessed and stole defendants' confidential prison records and communications, including attorney-client communications. Communications that were subsequently shared, sold to a blogger who sold that material to unknown number of government witnesses. Defendant has a good faith basis to believe that the stolen information was also provided to a government informant who may have shared said information with government witnesses at the behest of the government. Since such information developed during this investigation might constitute impeachment evidence, the government should produce it pursuant to Brady versus Maryland and its progeny. While defendant was detained in the Chicago MCC between July 15, 2019 through January 8, 2020, access logs showed that 60 BOP employees accessed defendants' confidential records. One such BOP employee accessed defendants' records 153 times, even though that employee was not assigned to the MCC. Cited are the Chicago Sun-Times article and the Chicago Tribune article. 2. Information from those records, including defendants' visitation lists and email communication, including attorney-client communications, were provided to a YouTube blogger named Tasha K. On information and belief, Tasha K. shared those stolen communications with government witnesses with an alleged government informant who was under federal indictment at the time the information was stolen. The United States Attorney's Office commenced an investigation into the incident that resulted in defendants' communication being stolen and shared with untold individuals. Apparently, the U.S. Attorney's Office sought a search warrant for the computer used by the BOP employee, United States versus HP desktop computer. The application and affidavit in search of the search warrant has been sealed and is not available for public review. Defendant has never seen the search warrant application and supporting affidavit. The investigation does not seem to have resulted in any arrests, even though it seems straightforward that at least one BOP officer engaged in official misconduct by accessing unauthorized records and selling these records with third parties. Defendant learned that his email communications, including communications with his attorney and third parties, were shared with potential government witnesses, either in this case or the EDNY prosecution. If such information was shared with government employees by the government or its agents for the purpose of influencing testimony and or a third-party government informant use the information to influence government testimony, such evidence would constitute exculpatory material to which the defendant is entitled. Defendant must be afforded the opportunity to discover facts that may be used to discredit government witnesses and or show bias and motive on the part of the government witness. It is highly suspicious that no indictment resulted from this clear act of official misconduct amongst other federal crimes. Defendant is entitled to discover who was interviewed as part of the investigation, what information was stolen, whether it included attorney-client phone calls or communications, and whether such information was shared with prosecutors, their agents, or government witnesses. Wherefore, defendant seeks an order from this court commanding the U.S. Attorney's Office to produce the information. And that was sent May 16th of 2022 and certified by the law office of Jennifer Bonji. If you are a supporter of Robert Kelly's, if you are upset by the sentencing, then commit to doing the work. He got 30 years. You mail out 30 letters in 30 days. 1 letter a day. 30 years equals 30 letters in 30 days. You send 1 letter a day. 1 letter every single day. You get 30 envelopes, 30 stamps, and you get the letters. You print out 30 copies, and you can send them to the various people that I've identified in the letter, but each person should get a letter, and you can rotate, but a different letter should go out every single day. 30 years, 30 letters. 30 years, 30 letters. 30 years, 30 letters. Each person that supports Robert Kelly must send 30 letters in 30 days. We doing 30 for 30 for 30. 30 years, 30 letters in 30 days. That means every single person that supports Robert either screenshot this letter and expand it to 8.5 by 11, or type it out fresh yourself and then print out 30 copies, or manually write it, handwritten. You don't have to do it verbatim. You can just get the essence of what the letter is saying, and then make 30 copies of that. Get 30 envelopes, 30 stamps, and address them to different people. The first is going to be to the General Counsel, James Wills, Federal Bureau of Prisons, Internal Affairs, 320 First Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20534. You're going to send the next letter to the same address, but to the Deputy Director. Then you're going to send to the same address, same letter, to Michael Carvajal, who is the director. Then you're going to send the same letter again to the General Counsel at the same address, James Wills, and you will send a copy to the Regional Director, who is at 400 State Avenue, number 800, Kansas City, Kansas, 66101. And that is Barb Von Blackensee with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, North Central Regional Office. She's the Regional Director. You send her a copy. And then you send Russell Heisner, who is the warden at MCC. We all have his address, 71 Van Buren Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60605. You send him a copy. And the Internal Affairs Department at the previous address. 30 letters, 30 days, to 30 different people. 30 for 30 for 30.